One line welcome. Joseph, one line welcome. One line. I welcome all the panelists.
Yes.
Which region will you? I just counted from the left. Yeah, I think we counted from the left. KMC will be chairing. I don't know. But he's not able to come. Okay. I think Hridaya is here. Hridaya is here. Can remove this chair. No, let the chair be not there. Take another 2 minutes. Let it be there. No. Send the chair on the vacant. That's it. No, it's okay. It's okay. Right. It's just say. Ashwini, come here. Please come here. Ashwini, sort of thanks. Ashwini, where is? Yeah.
Distinguished academicians, esteemed professors, valued guests joining us both in person and online, dedicated students and research scholars, a very warm welcome to the concluding policy roundtable on Kerala towards a strategic development agenda. As part of the seminar on post-COVID development challenges and response, Kerala through the lens of state budgets, organized by the Gulati Institute of Finance and Taxation. Guiding today's discussion, we have the esteemed former Cabinet Secretary, a distinguished Professor of GIFT, Sri K.M. Chandrasekhar, chairing this session. We're privileged to have you with us today, and we extend a heartfelt welcome to you, sir. We're also honored to have an esteemed panel of speakers who have kindly joined us to share their knowledge and insights. I warmly welcome Professor K.P. Kannan, former Director of Center for Development Studies and distinguished Professor at GIFT. Sri G. Vijayaraghavan, former member of Kerala State Planning Board and honorary professor at GIFT. Professor Mridul Eban, honorary fellow of Center for Development Studies. Professor Chandrabas Narayana, director of Rajiv Gandhi Center for Biotechnology, Thiruvananthapuram. Professor S. Irudayarajan, chair of International Institute of Migration and Development and honorary professor at GIFT. Sri John Samuel, who has not joined us today. Professor R. Ramakumar, member of Kerala State Planning Board and professor at Tata Institute of Social Sciences, Mumbai, and Sri M.G. Radhakrishnan, a senior journalist. To take the discussion forward, I now invite our esteemed chair to take over the proceedings of the session.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me clearly? Can you hear me clearly? Do you hear me?
Yes, you are audible here.
Okay, very good, very good. Okay, thank you very much, Gulati Institute of Finance and Taxation and Professor Joseph for calling me to chair the session. Finding that all of them are offline, I think I should also have come there. I wasn't feeling that well today and I expected most of you not to come offline, but to participate online. But anyway, it's nice to see so many distinguished people of Trivandrum at this meeting. Now, when I first got the invitation for this workshop or roundtable or whatever, what is it called? Workshop. Anyway, I thought it was basically, I thought COVID is already dead and it is gone. So what do we have to do with COVID today? But then later on, reading the text, I found that this is more about the strategy for development of Kerala and the challenges that we face post-COVID. Of course, during COVID, we did have some problems. One of our significant sectors, tourism, suffered initially in the beginning. But later on, tourism was able to recover primarily due to a substantial increase in domestic travel, making up for foreign tourists coming into Kerala. There was a decline in demand all over, not only in Kerala, but all over in India. We had to deal with the problem of migrant laborers, and unemployment, of course, increased substantially. But basically, we have managed to come back to normalcy in most areas. Production in large industry, particularly power and the key sectors, remain on track. Some of the MSMEs had to close down, but there has been, there is one great quality about Indian economy is that it is highly resilient, and our industry is highly resilient. So if the MSMEs had to give up certain areas of production, they opened the new areas in such areas as masks and various other things related to oxygenators, concentrators, and so on, which related to the pandemic as such. So production again revived in a different way. And after COVID also, now 2 years after COVID, we still find that production remains reasonably high. Then, of course, there has been a change in structure, change in production patterns. But basically, I think we are back to where we were, almost there. Then, in some areas, we actually gained. For example, hospitals. I found, there is a hospital called Al Shifa in Perindalmanna, which was running into huge losses year after year. And during this period, they were able to get the vaccination contract for that area, and particularly the airport, and they bounced back, and they're still bouncing back. More and more, their profitability is increasing, their revenue is increasing. So a change has taken place in the pattern. Now, hospital tourism declined like all other tourism, but that has again recovered now. You see a lot of tourists coming into Kerala. But now the immediate problem that we face is not really the change in production that has taken place. The real change is the global situation has completely transformed. We have the Trump effect, which is playing out in various unpredictable ways. As you know, the tariff on India initially imposed to 35%, 37%, I think, came down to 10%, and then now it is up again at 25%. And Trump has said that within the next 24 hours, he will raise the tariff again because we are not behaving in respect of buying oil from Russia. Now, the Trump effect is going to affect Kerala. And this is something which Kerala will have to look at. Particularly, I find that Mr. Ramkumar is here. He's on the planning board. I think the planning board will have to look at it. Because we do have some products, some export products, where we are heavily dependent on the US. We have, for example, pepper and cardamom, not so much because cardamom goes to the Middle East. Pepper mainly, pepper and olive resins mainly go to the US. But the more dangerous thing will be marine products because a number of fishermen will be affected. And with this higher tariff and the lower tariff imposed on our competitors, this is going to be an area where we are going to really be affected adversely. So, of course, our exporters are good. They will look for other markets. And we also need to look at different strategies because we can no longer stay confined to the US market. We cannot say these are our biggest buyers as they were till now. We'll have to look for other markets. We'll have to join other agreements There are many, like the Trans-Pacific Agreement, the Regional Cooperation Agreement, and so on. And we need to take a close look at that. We probably would need a change in our strategy worldwide. And that is something the government of India will need to do. Now, the Trump effect should also concern the Finance Commission, because it is going to affect the states in a differential manner. Gujarat may be affected because of gems and jewelry. Kerala will be affected by pepper and the shrimp exports. And various other states, Tirupur will be affected by textiles. So various other states will have problems in exporting and in finding new markets. So the Finance Commission will have to look at, you see, any export that takes place, any production that takes place, can only be jointly done by the state and the center. The center cannot do it all by itself. So the Finance Commission will have to look at this change that has taken place in the global scenario. Likewise, artificial intelligence has begun to affect one of our key production areas, that is information technology, the outsourcing that is taking place into Kerala. All that is going to be affected. We have already seen that the Tata Consultancy Services has decided to reduce employment by 12,000. This is an unusual kind of move. And this might have a domino effect on a number of other industries and similar services. This is another area where Kerala, which has Technopark, Infopark, and so many other technology centers, they may get affected by this change that has suddenly taken place and has gained importance in the recent months. So these are some of the areas which you will have to look into. I'm very glad that a very distinguished set of economists and practitioners is here today. We have Professor K.P. Kannan, who was formerly director of CDS. He is a great expert on taxation and a distinguished professor of Gujarati Institute of Finance and Taxation. Then we have Mr. G. Vijayaraghavan. He is the man who created Technopark and who set off the industry, the IT industry in Kerala. He is here. He was former member State Planning Board, and he's an honorary professor of Gujarati Institute of Finance and Taxation. We have Professor Mridul Ipan. She was also a member of the State Planning Board, and she is honorary fellow of the Center for Development Studies. Professor Veeramani, unfortunately, has not been able to join us. His knowledge of international trade would certainly have helped us. Then we have Professor Chandrabhas Narayana, who is the director of Rajiv Gandhi Center for Biotechnology in Thiruvananthapuram. Maybe he will give us some indication as to whether the changes that have taken place in the global scenario is likely to affect his sector in particular. Then we have Professor Irudai Rajan. He is chair of the International Institute of Migration and Development and honorary professor of Gujarati Institute. He has a great knowledge of the migration patterns, particularly outward migration from Kerala, and how that is going to be affected by the changes in the global scenario is something we will hear from him. Then we have Professor Ramakumar, who is member of the State Planning Board and also professor of the Tata Institute of Social Sciences in Mumbai. I have heard him many times. He's very, very learned, and he has his own strong views, which may not generally correspond to the existing views that are there out there. They can speak quite differently. Then we have Professor N.G. Radhakrishnan, a very well-known and a very eminent journalist. who can contribute to what he thinks will be the global scene. So I would request all these speakers, we are already quite, we have lost some time already. The previous session didn't end quickly. So I would request you to keep your discussion, your talk down to about 5 minutes to 8 minutes so that we can hear all of you. Then I can sort of sum up the discussion and we can then go on to some questions and answers. So we start with Professor Khan.
Me after 10 minutes. Mr. Chairman, distinguished co-panelists and friends. This is a session supposed to be to give some policy advice, isn't it? Exactly. Some way forward. I'm not way forward. I'm not
Can
sure.
you speak closer to the mic?
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, clearly.
Okay. This is supposed to be a policy advice session. And Professor Joseph says we have to show the way forward to Kerala. I don't know whether I'm good enough to do that job, but I will share a few thoughts of mine because we have been deliberating this issue for the last 2 days. And I will not repeat whatever has been said by many distinguished speakers here, which I enjoyed enormously. I would start by saying that if you are a Keralite living in Kerala, Kerala is a pretty good place as far as your standard of living is concerned. So as an economist, I look at the large picture, and there are very many areas where we can complain and quarrel, and we do that. But we also have big problems. So I would say, what is Kerala today? It's a flourishing Kerala with a floundering public economy. Private economy is flourishing, and the public economy is in penury. I say that because Kerala belongs to the top 6 major states with the highest per capita income. It's number 6. But if you add the remittance income, which is very high for Kerala compared to other states, and many states don't have that advantage, then I find Kerala will be number 1 per capita income. But you can say, what about distribution? And that's an important issue, economic inequality. But if you take the labor market, if you are willing to work as a manual labor in the casual labor market, the wage rate in Kerala is 2.5 times that of all India. The women's wages are lower than men, no doubt, but women's wages are at least double that of the average for other states. So there's another aspect of this. It's not only in per capita income, Kerala also ranks number 1 in per capita consumption. In fact, Kerala's rank in per capita consumption has been number 1 continuously for the last 30 years, from 1994 onwards. The per capita income has been showing a lower level than consumption. And I argued in my earlier writings that this gap is due to the remittance income that has propelled consumption. So indirectly, we have the influence of remittances in our consumption figures. High vehicle density, high consumer durable consumption. I have spoken about it before, but I think for the sake of our newcomers here, I will just say a couple of words. If you take In the latest Consumer Expenditure Survey 22-23, which is a very comprehensive one, and there are items on consumer durables included which were not there in earlier rounds of consumption expenditure. If you take households with at least one TV, one mobile or land phone, or a vehicle, either a two-wheeler or four-wheeler, 56% of households in Kerala have all these three, as against 46 for all India. If you add a refrigerator to it, 3 plus 1, 4, Kerala's average number of households having this is 54%, majority. 30% is the all India average. If you add to this one more durable, that is washing machine, Kerala's average is 36, all India drops to 15%. If you take this as a kind of a threshold to define the households as well off or very well off, if you have all these five, I would say that also shows the nature of the standard of living. Of course, when I add although we have heard a lot of things about broadband, access to broadband, what can you do with all kinds of things? If you look at a particular item, which is very common and very important for students and youngsters, laptop, only 14% of the households in Kerala have at least one laptop. The all India average is 4.5. So you know uh, what I'm saying. But this is one side of the problem. But we have a lot of paradoxes or failings. The important failing that I have flagged in my earlier writings, and I continue to do so, is the inability of Kerala to provide employment commensurate with educational qualifications and aspirations. And as that has affected women much more intensely than men. The men have found a vent, and that is to the Gulf. And therefore, if you look at the statistics, you will find the unemployment among men is very low, but unemployment among educated women is very high. But unemployment here is defined as only those who are seeking work. And when you do a much more accounting kind of exercise from the NSS data, you find a lot of women are outside this seeking work. They are not seeking work, but they don't have any work. And they are also not in education. That's a very high percentage. If I apply a threshold of graduation and above, there are nearly 9 lakh women with at least a graduate level qualification and not in work and not in education. So that's the kind of challenge in employment. I will take up the floundering nature of the public economy little last, because that's what our finance minister was interested, and he told me that in your last session, I would like to know what you are going to say towards all of us. If you ask me to flag 5 or 6 major issues that we should take into account in Joseph's strategic development agenda for going forward, I would say the first one is the um, fiscal crisis, because you need money for any kind of state intervention. And as with other people in other parts of the country, we also have the habit, everything government should do if there is a problem. So overcoming the fiscal crisis of having to go for borrowings to fill up your revenue deficit, a persistent one, is a major challenge. Number two, what I said is the challenge of the educated unemployed. Number three is what I would like to call, which is much more foundational, but I put it as number three because the first two are to be solved in the short term. You cannot wait forever. They will get aged. the challenge of creating an environmentally sustainable framework for going forward, whether as a state for charting out a development path, or as individuals and households, how to live in terms of looking at your consumption, and for enterprises and institutions looking at what kind of investment they do. If these activities are not consistent with environmental sustainability, for example, carbon footprint and other kinds of disasters, there you are in for trouble. Whatever you build up will not last long, as we have experienced. And we have the experience before us, one after the other. Sridhar flagged it very well, Oakley, in 2017. The great floods, I called it 2018. Not so great floods in the next year, 2019. COVID in 2020-21. And now the sporadic, although we may say localized events like Churalmada and many other places of landslips, soil piping, so on and so forth. The fourth one that I would like to flag is avoiding Kerala's, despite this flourishing kind of uh, standard of living, I would say avoiding the lopsided development. If you look at whether it is short-term or long-term trend, I looked at the 60-year trend, and I found agriculture sector has ceased to be of any consequence as far as Kerala's growth performance is concerned, because its contribution to growth is so little, because the agricultural output in the total GSDP of the economy is almost negligible. That's not a desirable situation. So there's a big challenge of modernizing agriculture in an environmentally sustainable way. The industry, it, you know, ranges around 20 to 22%. Therefore, 75% of the state's income is from the service sector. For all practical, and if you add remittance, remittance is a service income because we export labor services and get the remittance in return. It will be a little more than 75%. So the entire, and if you look at an exercise in contribution to growth of all these three sectors, the biggest contributor is the service sector. So literally, we are a service economy for both inside and for the rest of the country and for rest of the world, basically to the Gulf area. The last one, the fifth issue that I would like to flag is good governance. And good governance, it is easy to talk about it than to really even analyze. Very few people have talked about the political economy of governance. We always say administrative reforms commissions are there, their recommendations are there, and they are not taken seriously unless a few of them are found interesting. And the political economy of rent seeking, that I think is quite pervasive, as with the rest of India. The only difference might be the levels are lower because the public uh, consciousness is quite high, the pressure is so high. So even when you indulge in various forms of rent seeking, and the most blatant one is corruption of all kinds, maybe the level is little low. 5 crore may be very low if you talk to a person from Andhra Pradesh. He said, what is 5 crores? We don't talk about single digits. So that might be something of a, assurance for you. As far as the fiscal crisis, which I flagged, and if I were to come back, the crisis in my mind, there are several aspects I have written about it. But the one thing that I want to tell you is that which other states don't have is our the total revenue, both own revenue plus the what we get from government of India, the total revenue, 20% of it goes as pension. Sometimes 21%, it depends on, but 20%. 20% of the total revenue goes as interest payment for past debt, which also 21, 22, depending on the year that you are looking at. And this is exactly half for all the states combined, 20%, 10 plus 10. So we have an additional burden of 1/5 of our revenue, total revenue, going into these two payments, which we cannot, do away with. And the rest, 60%. For every 100 rupee you collect, only 60% is available then for all the other expenditure. The second manifestation of crisis, since you have a persistent revenue deficit, and there are people who might argue, justify, this is needed, that is needed, I have no problem with that. But unless you borrow, you cannot continue your revenue expenditure. And that too, my calculation says 2/3 of the borrowing, net borrowing, goes for filling up the revenue deficit. So what you are left with is only just 1/3 of your borrowings for capital expenditure. And if that capital expenditure goes into projects, it doesn't mean capital formation takes place because of enormous time and cost overruns. What I have looked at as the past projects, I have not looked at last 10 years. If the average time and cost overruns have come down, I'll be very happy to hear that. But I doubt whether that has happened. So your capital expenditure and capital formation, there's a big gap because of the same project eats up a lot more money. The second source to take care of this revenue deficit, what you have to do is you have several constraints. You say constraint optimization exercise, as somebody said yesterday for the finance minister. He told us that he has very little leeway with the government of India because they decide about our divisible pool. We can protest, but there is no guarantee that it will be changed in favor of southern states. Secondly, he also thinks they have put limits on the borrowings, so I have to work within that limit. So it's another constraint. And various other kind of intrusive management and information systems for centrally sponsored projects and so on. So the only way is to look at your own revenue. And I find there is a secular decline in your tax collection efficiency from 12% to 10 to 9 to 8, now 7.8. In a booming economy with growing, accelerating consumption of taxable goods. And that's it. So I argued, and I told him also in another meeting, that if only you increase the 7 point, he himself collected 8.5% 2 years ago, 21, 22, then 7.9, then 7.8 now. So every 1% increase in tax effort will give you 12,000 crores at the current GSDP. 12,000 crores if you increase your tax collection efficiency. Bring it back to what was in the not even 80s, but 90s. It was 10%, 9%. Another 1% will give you 24,000 crores. Easy to say, but very difficult. Yesterday in the Madhubhumi, I read there was tax intelligence raid among 10 textile establishments in the North Malabar, and they found a tax evasion to the tune of 1,200 crores. And last year in October, there was a raid among the jewelry manufacturers, and they found something like 1,000 crores of evasion by 11 jewelry merchants. So we are not talking about small evasions by the small kadas and establishments. We are talking about big. If you are able to catch your big fish, we all will be better off, and I am sure then the government will be laying the foundation for a more sustainable, because there is a whole list of things to be done. I was part of a team after the floods, the PDNA, what Sridhar mentioned, post-disaster, PDNA, need assessment. It was a comprehensive report prepared by 30 UNDP experts, 60 state government officials who were well versed in their own areas. The government nominally accepted it, and I am not sure whether that is being scrupulously followed, because it lays down the environmentally sustainable foundations in terms of what technology and practices you should adopt in building construction, what kind of land, water, and bioresource management, the room for river. That phrase came out of that committee report because the Netherlands people explained to us how this can be done in states like us. So the various other kinds of things, gender sensitive, inclusive, strengthening the decentralization process, which is still a work in progress. So there is no dearth of proposals. There is no dearth of good advice, but I think we need to uh, keep in mind the political economy and the constraints the government itself faces, and that calls for much more public watch and public action. Thank you.
It's okay, you don't have to talk. Don't come. Don't worry. Try to save a minute when he's good. Chairman of the session, Shakem Chandrasekhar, fellow panelists, Mr. Joseph, ladies and gentlemen. I know it's a limited time, so I'm going to actually talk in a way bulleted points. Let me try to highlight some key themes and reflections that are there, because over the last 2 days, you've definitely heard a lot of deep insights on how Kerala has navigated post-COVID. I did attend one session, but I didn't see anything with regard to the budget on that, even though the theme is Kerala through the lens of the budgets. COVID-19 definitely was a major health crisis, and the pandemic was global. It happened in an already unstable world, rising inequality, climate disruption, protectionism, and digital concentration. In fact, global institutions struggled. Finance capital drove instability across. Developing regions, including India, faced disproportionate impacts. In fact, that was a time when you could say it's the return of the state in a way. The COVID reminded us that the state is irreplaceable in such a crisis. The Kerala state led this well through what one would call, it was stress test in a way, because of the strong public health, education, local governance, and social infrastructure that paid off. In fact, the trust in government became a critical advantage at that time. When you look at budgets as a window post that, state budgets are not just financial documents, they reflect choices and values of the people in government. And Kerala's budgets recently have tried to balance between continued investment in welfare and support for innovation and knowledge economy, and also some efforts towards climate resilience. But despite constraints, budgets have tried to be responsive and transformative. But what has really happened is that these budget speeches are really great. The planned documents are even greater, but implementation has been terrible. And this is not now, it's been there for a very, very long time. And in spite of the fact that we have such a huge government setup, implementation is where we continuously fail. So one question which I normally ask the finance minister on one of those post-budget discussions is, agreed, speech was great. How do you ensure that it did not happen like last time, where you couldn't implement a lot of the plans that were there? This is something which I think is important. We'll need to see how that happens. Agriculture, Professor Kannan mentioned earlier, the level to which it is going when you look at the sectoral highlights. Actually, I was jokingly telling Dr. Kannan that the size of the agriculture department that we have and the number of people employed by the agriculture department, if all of them started just spending half their time in agriculture, not advising or monitoring, but actually doing agriculture on the ground, we would have a much better number in terms of our agriculture production. Industry, we've had several things on the startup area. Some changes have happened. Education and health to some extent are taken care of, but higher education has been a disaster. And that is reflected in the unemployment that we see. In fact, it is actually, one would say that we have a higher education system which actually creates unemployable people. And that is a big problem that we have, which is one of the reasons why you find a lot of young people leaving the state after 12th grade to go not outside the state. Many people go outside the state, many people go outside the country. And one of the things I've said that how do you measure whether the higher education setup is good or not, is you find out where the children of certain groups of people go. So years ago, it used to be only the businessmen who used to send their children out. Then you had the bureaucrats starting the sending out. Today, even the politicians send their children out. So what's good for my children, so I send them out, is not good for the people in the state. So that change hasn't happened because there are vested interests controlling though the changes in that, but because they're bothered about their jobs, they're bothered about the positions, and they're not really bothered about the education of the students. Then you look at the core economy areas. In fact, demographics needs more attention as a productive sector. We need to see what can be done there. Then, of course, you have the gender and equity lens, a lot of controversies on that happening recently. And climate change is an area we definitely need to be focusing on. The floods have been terrible. The threats on the coastal side are bad. And you also find that the rising costs, both financial and human, are very, very high. When you look at this other big thing which all of everyone talks, and I know it's been talked about now, is we definitely need to revisit the center state financial relations and to see how we can empower responsive state action. That is something which definitely is important. And then you get into what one would call the role of the knowledge and technology area. Digital transition is happening globally. Kerala seems to be ready, but is it really ready or not? You would know from what Sridhar mentioned earlier and what many of us face. So we have everything in place, but there is something which is not allowing that to go forward, which again is because of vested interest. So you want to get a certificate, you can get it. The capacity is there, the capability is there, but you don't get it because somebody wants to see your face, and only when they see your face can their power be certain. So that is what makes a difference here, and that somehow government is not able to enforce that. And I just start with an example. I think Amkumar would know the there was software developed when Harilal and others were in the planning board before Mr. Chandrasekhar came in. Then Harilal mentioned this, and it was developed by IIIT on plan monitoring. It was very difficult; it was not going through, but we took a strong stand. It got implemented, and because of that, we could actually monitor what's happening. And I see that government is continuing to do that. So sometimes, if you push, you can get it done. But many a time, the person who is to push is afraid of the organized government workforce who are supported heavily by the politician. That's what makes the change there. But I still believe that Kerala has an edge because of the literate, politically aware population, legacy of social investment, trust in the idea of capable and caring state. And we need to renew and adapt, invest in climate innovation, quality of services. In fact, I believe that every challenge is an opportunity, and we will soon face another major social problem. People are not talking of it as a social problem today, but it was mentioned by at least the chairman, Mr. Chandrasekhar mentioned it, and also one of the professor also mentioned about the retrenchment in the IT sector. That is not going to be a small issue. It is going to be a major social problem. And a state like Kerala will actually face a bigger number because we actually have several multiples of the number of people who work in Kerala from that sector who are working outside the state. And generally, when there is a crisis and a financial crisis which happens to a family, you tend to return home. Okay. So, like you had this thing where you thought people from Kuwait are going to come back, it's going to be a problem. Nobody's thinking about it yet, but it is high time we started to see what we can do there. It's not going to be schemes where you're going to tell them, I'll do a pension scheme or I'll give you something. No, you definitely need to be looking at what can be done. And these are qualified people. How can we do that? And there are a lot of inputs which came in from Professor Clifton about came in there. So definitely one should look at that. So I would say that we should look at this challenge which is going to come up as an opportunity in what we can do there. I would say that look, let this seminar not be the end, but a start. It should be a start to a new conversation. We need to focus on creating employment. Need to make Kerala a great place to live in and work from. And I've said that multiple times, even from the same platform. I've said that before. We need more and better governance and less government. That's again where a problem comes in, where no political party wants to make that call. We need to have a courageous policy, clear prioritization, and continued dialogue between government, academy and and civil society. I believe that seminars are good, but unfortunately, we've had so many seminars, we have so many workshops, and so many papers and research papers that are there, but nothing gets implemented on the ground. And unless you see something implemented on the ground, all this time and money is a waste. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Sri Vijay Raghavan. Your words are very, I mean, we very much appreciate some of the concerns that you raised are really one should be taking note of. And we also note the slip between the so-called seminars and actions. We will try whether we will try our level best to do that. Thank you very much. Now we have our Professor Mridul Epen, Honorary Professor Center for Development Studies, and also formerly the Planning Board member, a much concerned scholar.
I'm sorry to make a. Firstly, thank you for inviting me for this seminar and Mr. Chandrasekhar and my co-panelists. I'm very happy to be here, but I'm sorry to say that uh, unfortunately, as usual, the dais is too high for a woman. High, yeah. It just happened recently, is it? I've never felt it before. I've grown shorter, probably.
You can.
So
actually,
I'm really
better that you
be shorter.
better that you should be sitting there.
Can I do that? Yeah, why not? I can't see half the people. Yeah. I mean, I thought this was
Recently,
it-
your height has reduced a bit, I suppose.
makes you happy, and I'm willing to agree to that. No. Yeah, somehow the other it seems to be higher to me today. So I just wanted to make a few points based on what actually did happen during COVID, and not only COVID, the other disasters, the floods and the landslides, and the recent thing that has happened. So what can we do, keeping what happened at that time in mind, and how do we move forward? That's what I'm trying to do. Now we all know that all disasters, whether COVID or whether extreme weather events, whatever it is, they adversely affect women much more than men, and women and gender diverse people. So that is one thing which is very well known and very well recognized. But the first point I would like to make is that though post disaster responses in Kerala, of course, have been remarkable. We all know that COVID and the floods, even for gender, it has been quite sensitive. But of course, there are still gaps there. But more than that, it's the pre-disaster activities which are absolutely gender insensitive. And in the morning, also, I heard someone talking about disaster preparedness. Where are the women there? Where are the women there? We don't know. And this is something very important for the policymakers to keep in mind in the budgets. And that's where I come to the budgets. When you keep 50 crores for disaster preparedness, how is it going to go to the different sections of the population? At least how many women are going to be involved in risk assessment, in early warning systems, in education about disaster management? So many things are there for women to know before that. So that is very important. And the first point I want to make is that the pre-disaster management has to involve women in a much bigger way, and that should be visibilized in the budget. Now, obviously, you cannot have a long write up in the budget about what you're going to do under each category of disaster management, but at least you can state that this will involve so many women for this type of activity or so many men for this type of activity has to be stated very explicitly. That's the first point I want to make. The second is we know what happened to women during the COVID. First big problem they had was this intensification of the unpaid care and unpaid household and care work. We all know that. And we also know, because we know that lockdown, children are at home, husband is at home. So there's a whole lot of much more work for women to do. Now, all through we have been pushing for better daycare centers for children, better daycare centers for the elderly, for the disabled. Little amounts have been put in the budget for this. Each budget we have a small amount going in for all this. But I think in the way forward, I would like to say very, very clearly that we need a very large workforce, which is geriatric caring, which is child caring, which is disability caring. We need a very large workforce. And when I say that, I'm linking it to the skill argument also, the skill question also. We're talking about skilling and we're talking about the knowledge economy and everything. Now, skilling is for some reason, and I mean not for some reason, it's always associated with technology. No, that's okay. I agree that you need technology to be to be skilled and to have greater productivity. But there is a social skills. There are social skills of caring, which does get by default they're considered unskilled. So any woman sitting at home can definitely do Anganwadi work, or she can do caring for the elder people at home, because that's a natural ascribed role. So she can do it. But that's not correct. It's becoming very, very clear now that older people or disabled people, especially the intellectually disabled people, they need highly specialized skilled workers. So there's one thing which I would recommend very highly, that we really need a very large workforce for that, which relieves the burden on the woman and actually creates a very good opportunity for employment, which we are thinking of all the time, how to create employment. No, I'm not saying that you push women into this type of employment which does not give good earnings, but if they are specialized women and if they are specialized in the art of teaching or art of caring, they have to have good remuneration. That's, of course, is a very important point. So then you can raise the remuneration and you can make them do better work, and everybody benefits. So that's the second point I would like to make. The third is, of course, employment. Everybody talked about how we do need to increase it. Agriculture has no role. But here again, once I say that if you visibilize women in the agricultural sector, they're all there, whether it's cultivation, crop cultivation, whether it's animal husbandry, whether it's fisheries, the women are there in large numbers. If you visibilize them, we know then where to use technology or where to use your knowledge economy to make those women learn new things, new extension services can be delivered, and they can produce things that in a much more productive way. So this is the thing I would like to talk about employment, because agriculture is looked upon after COVID as an area of feasible employment, not for just women, even for men. It's an area where you can have much more employment if you definitely maybe away from crop cultivation, maybe into other sectors, but agriculture holds a big potential for employment in the post-COVID scenario. Now, so this is another thing that I'd like to say, that again, the budget has to specify in agriculture, for instance, the Subhiksham program, huge program on agriculture. It's integrated program, crop cultivation, your animal husbandry, your fisheries, your poultry, everything is there. Now, women, most of them are there. So visualize them in the budget, and then you will know that this is where employment can be created for women. So that's the third point. Then the other very negative that happened in the COVID was the violence, the domestic violence, especially. Now, I mean, from long we have been trying to sensitize society to make a gender conscious society. It's not happening. Now we have to think of ways of how to hasten the redressal procedure. Well, one is, of course, awareness. As a prevention, you have to go on creating, sensitizing people, especially the police, the judiciary, the people who matter in taking, in bringing about justice. So that's another thing which is very important. How do we now, once again, focus on innovative ways of preventing violence, of hastening redressal, and of rehabilitation, which a lot of the government has done already. For rehabilitation, for instance, they have been, very sensitive to the types of people who are abused. So there are different categories of homes now. Children below 12. Then there are homes for the 18. And then there are homes of people who don't want to study, the girls who don't want to study. So they want some training and they want to get employed. So you have Tejomaya, a home. So there's a lot of things being done, but I'm saying that for prevention, we need to be much more vigilant in terms of how do we really sensitize people by either focusing on a particular, maybe we focus on a particular law and sensitize all stakeholders in that law, which is what we did in the 11th plan, PWDV Act, Prevention of Domestic Violence Against Women. So, sensitize only the stakeholders involved there: protection officers, counselors, medical officers, police, judiciary. So do it like that. Maybe focus where you might have a better thing. Now, second last is data. All data from now on should be disaggregated. It's very, very important, not for planning alone, not for making gender budgets alone, but for planning really. It's very important to see, how all the schemes and programs go in what way are they being implemented to benefit all sections of the society. So that's the again learning from what happened in the disaster periods. We really need gender disaggregated data. Here also, the departments have been very, very, that's where I sometimes agree with all of you. The bureaucracy has been very helpful to us, in fact, in breaking down the numbers, we've been asking them to break down the numbers. You know what happened last year, maybe how many women benefited from startups or how many women benefited from some agriculture scheme. You give us that data, we'll know that this is, so they have been helpful, but it has to be in black and white. That has to start now because the numbers are there. If you give some money, you know who's availing of it. Men and women can be just taken down separately. That's the thing. The last, on a positive note, I wanted to end on a very positive note, and that is, what did we find among women during COVID? A huge creativity. I mean, that was fantastic. I just read about this in this Anjana Menon's Onam in a Nightie. It's about her experiences during Onam in Trishul. Now, there are hundreds of other stories like that. What happened? What did women do? There is an NGO I'm linked with. They had a competition, essay competition. What did women do during COVID? 80 essays came from young women all over the state. And interesting stories about what happened during COVID. So this creativity, again, the budget comes in. How do we channelize it into some large cultural activities that we do? The Binale. How do we channelize it into the Binale, for instance? So something of that sort, I think, needs to be done to learn from the lessons that, from the past and move forward. Thank you so much.
Thank you very
Thank
much,
you.
Professor Ipan. The next speaker is Professor Narayana, Director of the Rajiv Gandhi
Sir, I think I have one
Biotechnology.
sentence to say.
One
That
sentence. Please
yeah,
say your
one
one
sentence
sentence.
is that Professor Chandrabas Narayan is the only one guest in our group here. Otherwise, all others are members of GIFT family. Let us give him a big hand for as a welcome.
So you're outside the family, Professor Narayana.
Yeah, no, now he's made inside. Now he's made it that
Okay.
hand is for making him inside.
Correct. Thank you. First of all, thank you, Professor Joseph, for inviting me. In fact, I should say that the chairperson and all my distinguished panelists are experts in planning and also have been involved in meticulously planning for Kerala. So I stand here as a novice and coming from a biotechnology area. And I think you wanted me and the chairperson also mention that what are the things Kerala should be doing in biotechnology. Of course, I saw your program and I saw only two of us were from the biotechnology in this program. So I take that liberty and I will be short. I'll try to actually tell what is good and what is bad about in Kerala's biotechnology forum. So first of all, I wanted to give you a prelude to myself. I am born to Kerala parents, but unfortunately, I always stayed outside of Kerala. And this is the first 5 years of my life I'm staying in Kerala. So my knowledge about Kerala may be a little bit rusty and not appropriate, probably. But this is a perception I get in the past 5 years. Already it was mentioned by some of the panelists, but I want to re-emphasize that the cost of living in Trivandrum is much more than cost of living in Bangalore, from where I come from. This is a very surprising thing for me because Bangalore should be more expensive to live compared to Trivandrum. And this is a fact. And this is where we need to start thinking about why Kerala is so expensive. The consumption is more, per capita income is less, itself is an explanation why this is happening. So we need to actually address this situation. And when I look at Kerala, I should be saying Kerala is one of the, as many speakers have already told, has the best health, education, and social development indicators. Has the best. There is no doubt about it. But there is a big but in this. This is because we are not actually innovative in these areas. We are not innovative at all. and we should take it as a real cause for concern. And this innovation in these three sectors is very, very important. And I will stick to myself to agriculture because it comes under the biotechnology. I'll stick to healthcare and biotechnology as in doing things and developing areas. So when I actually look at it, the Kerala should try to actually not overemphasize its development on only agriculture and tourism. These two things is what Kerala has been very much emphasizing. I think it should be cautious about only overemphasizing that. Pardon my saying so. The reason is very simple, because if Kerala has to produce wealth, it needs to be a manufacturing place. It needs to have a strong emphasis in information technology, biotechnology, and renewable energy. These four, five areas it needs to invest strongly. And only if you invest in these areas, you will get. And I'll say in biotechnology, Kerala has always claimed to be first state to do anything. If you look at the digital university, it's the first one to actually do it. IAV, Institute of Advanced Virology, it is the first to do it. If you look at Center for Excellence in Microbiome, it is the first to do it. It is the first to do it in Center for Excellence in Nutraceuticals. Now, this is all the number one which Kerala has done. But sadly, I am involved in all of these places. And sadly, there is only that. There is nothing below. And today, we are actually suffering because of that. These programs, which were envisaged very well, have fallen flat. And the reason is because we have not thought through what it would take to develop these areas. So what we need to do is, when we start off on doing something new, we should see also how it will pan out in the next 10 to 15, 20 years, and have a strong, good planning for execution of that. The simple thing is, in IAV, it took us about till 10 years to actually get the salaries correctly done. And we are happy that today I can say that I was involved in that paper which was involved. Today, the salary of the scientist in IAV will be equal to something like CSIR, which is very, very important if you want to get talent to come into this thing. So when you are talking about knowledge economy, we need to actually benchmark ourselves to those areas where other states are doing very well. Many of them have mentioned Andhra or Gujarat or any other states. We need to benchmark ourselves. Sadly, we are actually lacking. I am running a master's program in biotechnology. Today, it is number one in the country. You can go back and look at the Google and check it out. It is one of the number one biotechnology program in masters. It started only in 2019, just about 5-6 years back. I have only one student per 20 every time from Kerala. Not even. You are saying Kerala is the most educated place. I am getting only one student, or at the most 2 students out of 20 in Kerala for a biotechnology course today. Why? The reason is our education system needs a drastic reform. We cannot be saying education is just making people literate. Education is to make them excellent. My PhD students, when they come from Kerala, they don't even have an basic idea of doing an experiment in biology. And without that, how are you actually going to be the top biotechnology in this country? Many of the students even have not touched a pipette in their life to pipette a biology experiment. So that is the level at which we are running programs. So what is the need of saying we are the most literate? I'm sorry, I'm actually trying to make it very clear that we need to be not just be literate, We need to be actually excellent. And that excellence can be there. And Kerala people are the people, as Sam was saying, every country you go, you'll find excellent Kerala people who are actually well trained and very well educated. And that is not impossible in Kerala. I was sadly puzzled today. Yesterday, I was actually interviewing people for one of the institutions, when I found a PhD student applying for a project assistant position. Why? Why would you do that? That is unheard of. A PhD applying for a job for a MSc, which is not at all acceptable in a state like Kerala. So that means opportunities need to be generated. So how do we go forward? And that is what is the discussion today. If you want to go forward in biotechnology, if Kerala needs to, we have 360 life science park. How many have actually taken land and done anything in the life science park? It is because, and I want to tell you, I had been just few weeks back, I was in Bangalore. I was in C Camp, which is one of the incubation facilities. And I will tell you, there is a company there which is leasing out sea for seaweed growth in Malaysia. And how much of sea is there in our surrounding? They are leasing the sea in Malaysia, and they are now $500 million company, making product out of seaweeds which they are growing in Malaysia. We can do that here. What? That is because our policies don't allow our seas to be used for these kinds of things. We need to actually go beyond shrimps, and we need to go beyond just pepper. We need to actually look at what are the blue economy is the biggest economy which needs to be invested, and Kerala has a large sea coast. And there is a possible very large way of actually developing it without disturbing the fishermen. These things do not actually disturb the fishermen. You can actually have deep sea leasing of the land, sea, and developing these kinds of products. If one single company has made $500 million company, all its products is approved by Europe and USA and other places. So today the market is there. We have the possibilities. We have the knowledge. We need to actually create policies so that we can actually use these places. And that actually automatically generates employment, the real credible employment for the people who are studying what they are studying for. The other areas is healthcare. Healthcare, we say that we have the best healthcare, but the expense. Yeah, thank you. I know you are there. 2 minutes more. I wanted to tell you, healthcare. We are actually proud of being providing good healthcare. Are we actually being socially equitable? This is not true. The processes of doing these things, the way I should appreciate. Again, I should say I was amazed at the palliative care which is provided by Kerala. I should say that this is the best palliative care in the world. It takes care of the people. I had my mother ailing, and she was taken care of without anybody asking. It was taken care of. That is the wonderful thing. Such provisions are there, but quality. Quality is what is lacking, and that quality and the price with which, until and unless you do research and try to bring down the cost, it is not going to happen. So we need to create hospitals like Sri Chitra, referral hospitals. These referral hospitals are the most important necessary things to be developed. You cannot do research in government medical college, or you cannot do in RCC, or in CCRC, or in even if you go to MCC, which is cancer research. Those kinds of institutions cannot, because the number of beds which are huge. We need to actually have referral hospitals. So we need to start thinking about referral hospitals. We need to actually develop clinically clinical researchers. Today, most of the doctors are wanting to do research, I was in a conference of Kerala Cancer Conclave, and all the doctors want to do research. They have absolutely no time to do research, and there is a big gap between the research and the clinician. Until and unless the biotechnology joins with the clinicians, you cannot do any amount of research. And the last answer to the question, what is are we going to be affected in biotechnology by the Trump's 25% or more? Let us be very clear. We export way less to US. So, and in biotechnology, it's the least. So it is not going to affect. There are many other countries which are actually dependent on our biotechnology. So we should not bother about it. But what COVID has taught us is to be self-reliant. And so we need to actually develop our biotechnology policies and the resources and also infrastructure, which should be of world class, where a company can come and start working and multiple layers of companies can be actually accommodated. And this kind of a structure needs to be developed, and for which there needs to be think tanks who are actually experts in biotechnology to come here. I stop here. Thank you very much for this opportunity.
On behalf of the chairman, I thank Dr. Chandrabas for that excellent exposition of issues and possible opportunities for us. Now we have next speaker is
Professor Irithai.
yeah, Silvaraj. Thank you very much. I think everybody ready to leave. I think so. I should not talk more. And I just wanted to start with something from the Kerala migration survey we have done recently with funded by the NARCA. Our survey, we went to 20,000 household. 42% household, they have informed us they are not back to the normal economic conditions after COVID. 42% of household throughout the state. And 32% said their loss of employment, 15% said wage cut. I think this is such a background for you to give you a larger survey we have done here. But today, I will talk to you because I heard when I came in, Professor Kannan talking about remittances and everybody talking about now migration remittances. So I thought I will not talk about that. I will talk something different today. I will talk about demography, pure demography. And if you look at it today, when you want to have the strategic, what is called the development agenda, you have to look at your population structure. Kerala is supposed to have a negative growth rate this year. Negative population growth rate this year, thanks to the internal migration. People are pouring in. People are pouring into the state. So now, because of the pouring in, and the government has to keep them in a good humor, which they are doing it. I know that they are doing very good humor. To keep them here, giving them whatever they can do. Because of that, your negative growth rate is postponed to 2041. So they given you 15-year window to sustain your population growth. In fact, I thought during COVID-19, I thought Kerala will have a baby boom because of the 1.7 million returned migrants came. Sorry, Kerala would not do anything. So you have no baby boom. So Kerala will have a negative growth rate of population. So what is that we are talking about? Good, very good. So how to, there is not many COVID babies here. Second point is that people talk about demographic transition. People talk about health transition. I think Kerala is undergoing what we call them the migration transition, which you should look at it when you are talking about future of Kerala. One is that if you look at period to 1941, Kerala had positive growth rate because nobody went from Kerala. They were happy with the coconut water and the fish and then tapioca. They are happy. When Kerala opened up,
they started moving by 4 trains: Trivandrum, Chennai, Trivandrum, Bangalore, Trivandrum, Mumbai, Trivandrum, Delhi. They started moving to what is called the internal migration. Then we started migration to internal. 80s, they thought, no, train is not good. Trivandrum, Abu Dhabi, Trivandrum, Dubai, Trivandrum, Qatar, Bahrain. So they moved to international migration. First time in the history of Kerala, now you have more people coming into Kerala than going out. This is a great opportunity. Great opportunity. Never had. Last, you are coming back to normal now. Coming in is more than that. So what type of economy we are talking about in this context demographically? Very, very important. This is a new migration transition. Earlier, Kerala people study. If you look at 1960, they studied in Kottayam, Pathanamthitta, they went by trains. Then people study outside Kerala within the Tamil Nadu and Karnataka for nursing, then they will migrate. Today, the first age of move from Kerala is 17. First age at what you call them, age at first marriage, age at first migration is coming down low. So you have huge student migration. Last year, our estimate indicate 50,000 crores have gone from Kerala for higher education outside the country. He's talking about he did not get any students. They are all going out. So what they will do here? So 250,000 students went from Kerala. They paid 50,000 crores. So you should keep that in mind. And climate change, I think it's going to have a very critical impact. Our survey clearly indicated 40% people in Kerala now worried about climate change. Not who is going to come in the next elections. They are not even bothered. When the floods will come, when the rain will come, when there will be a landslide, they are more worried about than what the politician and other people worried. They are more worried. Shall we think of something climate change in our political manifesto when we are thinking for the next elections? Very, very important. You give election manifesto on hundreds of things. But can we think of some type of a climate change? How Kerala people can handle the climate change? Because we thought, like Kannan said, 100 years back, that flood was, now the great flood came. It can come next year. It can be even this year. Somebody came to cut this area, what is called the electricity people. I said, what's happening? Next week, there will be heavy rains, sir. So electricity will go. We are cutting the trees. Next week, something is coming. So we don't know. Even this year, you can have floods. So floods is going to be a regular phenomenon, not like a 2021, 19. So I think this is something important. The last point is, I think Kerala is I would say Kerala is in a great place now to live. Why? You have 1 out of 5 person in Kerala is an older person. Older person like me, like Professor Kannan.
You're all active.
Yeah, actually I'll come. And that's what I'm going to come. Not I'm also part of the story. Some people are there, but there are more people in the audience older now. Young people already left. So we have only older people because they think they have no other work. So the point is very important is that Kerala, 1 out of 5 is an elderly person. 1 out of 5 is an older person, and 1 out of the 5 voters in Kerala is an older person. Look at political manifesto. We will give cycle. You want the old person want cycle. Give walking stick, man. So I think Kerala should think of this budget. You should think of something for the elderly person. And while we are talking, don't worry about green economy, blue economy. Kerala will be managed by silver economy, like country. All silver, I think he's not painted anything. No, you don't paint, you will be a silver. Why people are painting? Because they think, no, nobody will recognize us, let us paint. Silver economy is the future of Kerala, not other economy, blue, red, forget about all economy. Silver will take a lead and we have to go with them. Silver economy, and along with it, what I call them the second demographic dividend. India is talking about the first demographic dividend. That's what the Narendra Modi talks about that. He says, India will be a skill capital. I told the government, your skilled people are de-skilled in America. Better Donald Trump send those people, we can at least skill them. So skilling, they are de-skilled there. So better we use the second demographic dividend, which will be there for 100 years. The window will close the demographic dividend. First one, which we are talking about, young people. But silver dividend will be for 100 years. So you are in very safe hands, people like us. Nothing to worry. So to worry only people who are 80 plus. Nobody is here 80 plus. They are all doing well. Taken care of by palliative care, all the places. So please don't worry. They will lead the economy. So the government, people should think how to engage them, how to empower them. Don't give skills to these people. They will go on to do unskilling in clean the bathroom in Dubai. Better skill us. Skilling should start the silver people. They will build. They will not going to migrate. They will not leave. They will be here only. All the houses are locked now. They will go into the houses now. They will buy houses. Silvers are rich people now in Kerala than the younger people. They have more power. That's why the children are asking, when are you going to die? I'll get my property. So they are not even dying. So I think please remember silver economy along with what I call them gender dividend. People don't talk because women live longer than men. They will say goodbye, see you later. So please remember, you have one side silver dividend, one side you have gender dividend. You can utilize that. Kerala will be the great place for people to live and survive. We don't need to worry about cost. We will produce more cost because we are rich people. We're not worried about Trivandrum is very costly. We have money. So silver economy is the solution for the Kerala. I'll stop here. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Now, Professor Ramakumar, member of the Planning Board.
I think, Chairman, one sentence to Ramkumar. I think you did while introducing, you only talked about Ramkumar. He's the youngest among us. Okay. And not silver.
Far away from silver, yeah. Anyway, thank you so much. It's very difficult to meet the standards set by Rajan here, and I don't even presume that I can even go near that. But let me just try to say a few broad things. It's very difficult to say all the things you want to say in such a short time. There'll always be certain things that you miss. The first thing I want to say is that the Kerala economy that you see today is fundamentally different from the economy that you had 20 or 30 years back. The economy has changed fundamentally and in ways that we still don't know for lack of data and other reasons. One important facet of this change is that Kerala's growth has slowed down in the last few years, in the last decade for sure, compared to other states. We had a growth rate of the economy higher than the national average for an extended period of time, not anymore. But nevertheless, we still are a state with a very high level of per capita income. And this level of per capita income is such that if India has a per capita income, which is at the lower end of the lower middle income country group in the world, Kerala has a per capita income, which is already at the very high end of the lower middle income country group, which means that with a very simple 5% growth rate, by 26-27, Kerala will be upper middle income country along with 3 or 4 or 5 other states of India. Now that will be a very coveted status. We will be today Kerala's per capita income compared by the Atlas method is the same as Indonesia's per capita income. And we will be crossing the horizon in a couple of years. We will be an upper middle income country. Now, what does it mean to be an upper middle income country? An upper middle income country has to have certain things, certain facilities, certain infrastructure, certain conditions of life, and so on. Are we there? Certainly not, for multiple reasons. We are excellent in certain aspects, but we are not so excellent in multiple other aspects. And one of the things that has really held up, I have been in the planning board for the last 9 years, and I've seen certain things from very close quarters, and I see certain things don't happen as you think it will happen, but it doesn't happen. So much effort you put into something, one natural calamity can wipe it off. We put so much effort to develop fisheries in Kerala, inland fisheries in Kerala, in 2016, 2017, and 2018. In one flood, the complete confidence of people in inland fisheries was shattered. Nobody is ready to do inland fisheries anymore. So you have these recurrent natural calamities coming in. The flood of 2018, which led to a physical infrastructure loss of 34,000 crore in the state. Look at a state like Kerala having an infrastructure loss of
34,000 crore in 1 year is an unimaginable state of an economy. Its physical infrastructure was further destroyed in 2019, not to that extent, but to some extent. Then its social infrastructure was strained in 2020 and 2021 by the COVID. So your growth rate, all the efforts that you put in terms of investing in schools, investing in hospitals, investing in infrastructure, roads, etc., are not reflecting in a high level of growth rate for the economy. Now, that's primarily also because we have still not figured out what drives the Kerala economic growth. We still don't know. We know some things. We know agriculture, services, industry. We know broadly, but we still don't know what has to be done to drive economic growth to a 2 percentage point higher level than what is today. But that means that but one thing is very clear, regardless of this absence of information, that is that Kerala's productive sector has to grow. Now, there is no way in which Kerala's economy can go up, notch up its economic growth rate if its productive sector doesn't grow. I'll give you an example. People have spoken here about agriculture and its irrelevance. How did it become irrelevant? Between 2011 and 2019, Kerala, in constant prices, lost GSDP from agriculture to the score of rupees 8,000 to 9,000 crore. You had a negative growth rate for an extended period. That was an absolute loss in constant prices of about 8,000 to 9,000 crore. Our productivity levels are one of the lowest in the country. We have largest number of small and marginal holdings. We had an absolute phenomenal failure in aggregation. We are a phenomenal failure in marketing. And we then say we don't have value addition. But you ask people working in value addition, they will say, give me the supply, I'll do it. But where is the supply? Your productivity is low. Your aggregation facilities are underdeveloped. So you need basically, if you want to grow agriculture, you need to invest in productivity, you need to invest in aggregation, and you want to link it with value addition. Unless you meet the requirements of these three pillars, it's impossible to do, to bring back agriculture to any kind of health. Having said that, it's about post-COVID economic prospects that we are talking about. There is a growth. After this fall between 2011 to 2019-20, we are seeing a slight pickup in overall economic growth from about 2021, which is driven also by agriculture, which is driven also by the growth of MSMEs in the industrial sector. Now, this is something that is actually happening on the ground. If you look at the number of MSMEs that have been registered, if you look at the kind of value added that has happened, if you even look at the gross value added in the agricultural processing industry, which you can get from Annual Survey of Industries, for example, which are factories of all kinds, all data sources tell you that there is a very significant rise in gross value added in all these productive sectors, but it's not enough to notch you up to a growth rate of what is 5% or so now in constant prices to about 6 or 7 or 7.5% where you were 10 years back, where you were 15 years back. Now, that's the important challenge that Kerala has to face. Now, we say we want to invest in infrastructure. Now, if you invest in infrastructure, will growth happen? One is not sure because of two important factors. One, if the infrastructure-led growth processes assume that there is an internal multiplier effect in the economy that will happen from this investment through wages, through payment for raw materials, etc. But none of these two stay in Kerala. All these infrastructure projects, you pay enormous amount of wages, all of it leaks out of Kerala as remittances outside Kerala. Just like in the 80s, you had big houses in Kerala's rural areas, which were built by Gulf Malayalis. Today, you have similar houses in Bihar or Jharkhand built by workers who have migrated to Kerala and send back remittances to Bihar. So you have Malayali remittance houses in Bihar. That's where our money is going. I'm not being a son of the soil person here. I'm just saying that's the porosity of your border. The second important thing is you build all this. Where is all your cement coming from, or where are all your other raw materials coming from? They're not being produced in Kerala, or those taxes are not being paid in Kerala. But then they're going outside also. They're also going outside. So wages, raw material costs, all these are leaking out. What is remaining here? It is the use. The use part is largely driven by the money that is already circulating inside the economy. So how will it produce growth beyond a point? That you have 5% growth is a miracle. So we need to really think about heavily investing in our productive sector if you want to be a middle income, upper middle income economy in the true sense of the term. When we began the 13th plan, Mridul will be aware, we spoke about Kerala will have conditions of life similar to an upper middle income economy because we saw this transition is likely to happen. We have done enormously well. Kerala schools are comparable with some of the best in India. Kerala's taluk hospitals or public health centers are comparable with some of the best in the world. There's a viral Facebook post going around. Somebody who was in London, who was with, who depended on the NHS for an extended period of time, came back to Kerala and found that his experience was better than the NHS experience that he had in London. So we have gone enormously ahead with those kinds of investments and with those kinds of generational social infrastructure. But that is not enough. But in fact, Dr. Kannan and all were saying that our incomes, that our revenues are not growing. Our revenues will not grow. I don't think Kerala will ever have an own tax GDP ratio of 12%, which it had in the 1990s. It is impossible because half the taxes are not anymore in Kerala's hands. They are being collected somewhere else and are coming back as share of Kerala's tax revenue from the center. So it will obviously not get reflected in your tax GDP ratio. So your 12 of that day will be 7 or 8 today. That's not going to change. You can go up to 8, 8.5 in a good year, but that's all probably you can do. All the tax capacity of the state is no more the same as it was in the 1980s or 1990s. That's one. The second important issue here is that 2 minutes. Yes. The second important, in fact, forgot the second point. The first important, I even forgot the first point. Okay. The first point that I wanted to make was that the tax GDP ratio is unlikely to rise to that extent. The second point that I wanted to make along with that was if you want to invest so much in your social sector, which Kerala does, if you want to have the fiscal space that Santosh Babu here was merrily talking about, Tamil Nadu has this, Maharashtra has that, Karnataka has that, and so on, you have to invest in education like them. You have to invest in health like them. You have to invest in PDS like them, all of which are in shatters. If you want to do that in Kerala, you pay salaries for teachers, you pay salaries for doctors, you pay salaries for nurses, you pay salaries for scientists to that scale that you mentioned. It costs revenue expenditure. And you cannot at this point of time demonize revenue expenditure and say, oh, Kerala is paying all your money on salaries. Then you are saying Kerala's identity is irrelevant. Then you are saying Kerala's identity has no future, it has no meaning, shut it down. So I can have all school teachers in Kerala getting contract labor appointments, getting paid 15,000 rupees a month, and I can have the best infrastructure anywhere in the world. That fiscal constraint that Kerala has is real. And that reality of that fiscal crisis or fiscal lack of fiscal space is part of the reason why Kerala is Kerala. Now, if you want to break out of that, you need an out-of-the-box idea. You need an out-of-the-box source of revenue, which is what sources like IFBI and all were trying. But now that option is also closed. So you can't have everything at the same time, unfortunately, and that's a narrative that must change if you want to have some realistic discussion on Kerala economy. The last point that I wanted to make, I didn't want to make this point, and I don't know whether my colleagues in the board will appreciate this when I go back after this. Mr. Chandrasekhar was asking me about the Trump tariffs. There's a very detailed study that the State Planning Board has completed in collaboration with the Center for WTO Studies in Delhi. The report is likely to be out in a few days. We're just polishing it. We were going to release it today, but then boss announced yesterday that we are going to have 25 plus 10 plus 60 tariff, which will become 95. So we were modeling for 25% tariff, and tomorrow it may be 95%. So I don't know if that what I'm going to say is actually going to make any sense to you. Kerala basically exports. I take one more minute. Kerala basically exports about 5,000 crore rupees worth goods, and most of this is seafood exports, spice exports, coffee, tea exports, textiles and clothing. Kitex, for example, is a big exporter, and there is some electrical machinery that is getting exported. Now, our assessment essentially shows that we modeled for uh, 4 scenarios: plus 10% tax tariff, a plus 25% tariff, a plus, sorry, a plus 36% tariff, and a plus 500% tariff, which is very high, but which is what we do. And if we do these 4 scenario buildings, you will see that Kerala is likely to, at the 26% tariff level, which is what Trump has announced currently, Kerala is likely to lose $161 million a year in export revenue. And this is close to about 1,400 crore rupees in current exchange market, current market exchange terms. And this 1,400 crore is to be compared to the total exports of roughly around 4,500 to 5,000 crore. So you basically are going to have a 20 to 25% close to decline in revenues if this happens. And what is interesting here is that this does not include indirect disruptions that are likely to happen in the supply chain and so on, and the retraining and re-engineering that you will have to do in your trade routes and so on, which will further impact your export revenues in a big way. The big impact is going to be very clearly on seafood exports, which is basically shrimp exports from Kerala. We see that that impact is going to be severe. We have low, moderate, severe classifications. So it's going to be a severe impact on seafood exports. In textiles, we are going to have a moderate to high impact. And in coffee and tea, it's going to be highly sensitive to any change in tariff, which is going to come in the coming times. Electronics, we are fine. We are not much affected by it. Our resilience is high. And spices, it's a moderate effect. And in medicinal and other equipments, we are resilient. So basically, it's in agricultural products that we are, and textiles that Kerala is going to have a very severe impact. Its impact is going to be on seafood, textiles, coffee and tea, and spices, which where the impact is going to be very high. So agriculture may be irrelevant to some as for the economy as a whole, but the largest decline in export earnings due to Trump tariff is going to come from the agricultural sector. What is to be done? We very clearly see 3 important things to be done. One, we see that Kerala's export strategy must diversify away from US. The US, as Professor Reyes was correctly saying, out of the total Indian exports to the US, Kerala's share is 0.8% currently. So if you look at India as a whole, our impact is likely to be less. But within Kerala, as I said, out of a 5,000 crore revenue, if you lose 1,500 crore, that's a big impact. So, and this means that we will have to diversify into markets which are outside our traditional markets like US. And here, there may be some opportunity in the India-UK free trade deal on patents, intellectual property rights, etc. It's a horrible free trade agreement that we have signed, but there may be opportunities in spices, in seafood, and so on. And that should be explored. There may be diversionary trade gains from this chaos that we have today, and that must be carefully explored. And very clearly, Kerala must also move into new areas of processing, value addition, better traceability of agricultural exports, and so on, which will improve your competitiveness at the international level. So these are the things that you can do because you can't do much. Of course, none of this means that you need not invest in productivity or anything of that sort. But basically, if you are primarily looking at export markets and their resilience, these are the things that Kerala must be looking at. And the markets that appear to be most promising for Kerala in this tumult at the end of this chaos, as the dust settles down, is on the eastern part of Asia, Thailand, Vietnam, Indonesia, etc. These are the countries from to which Kerala could export-wise diversify when the US, if and when the US shuts down its market for us. I just thought I'll mention this to you more when we upload the report on our website. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now I request Mr. Radhakrishnan to speak.
Well, thank you, respected Chairman, Mr. K.M. Chandrasekhar. And thank you, Gift and Dr. Joseph, for inviting me. I think some of my friends there should be wondering why an out-and-out Trivandrum person like me is so far away talking online instead of coming there physically. But I'm temporarily out of Kerala and in fact far away from Kerala in North India, and hence this I'm imposing myself online on you. So since I've been called here as a representative of the media, let me confine myself to that field, and also let me confine to a particular area, which is the media's role in Kerala's encounter with the pandemic, and what should be its role in preparing Kerala for the next pandemic. But let me start with a big caveat, which is this. And in fact, this caveat would actually render my entire presentation perhaps a bit irrelevant, because the media everywhere is passing through unprecedented disruption and transformation, as you all know. It's no longer an organized, institutionalized system as it was before, and the mainstream media is almost dead. And instead, it's now a free-for-all republic of the social media, where chaos and anarchy are the rules. So today, everyone is a media person with no law, statute, or codes of ethics being applicable to anybody. So I don't know whatever we say about what the media should or should not do has any validity at all in today's media era. But nevertheless, let me tell you a few points that I have actually sort of documented. Kerala has gained global recognition for its efficient handling of health emergencies such as Nipah outbreaks and the COVID-19 pandemic. One of the key enablers of this response has been its vibrant and diverse media landscape, encompassing traditional print and broadcast media, digital platforms, and the community level communicators. However, the COVID-19 experience also exposed critical gaps: the unchecked spread of misinformation, panic inducing coverage, over politicization of medical decisions, and inadequate communication with the marginalized communities. So, in anticipation of future outbreaks, it is essential to reimagine media not just as a transmitter of news, but as an integral pillar of public health preparedness, capable of shaping behavior, building trust, and countering harmful narratives. So the objective is to develop a structured multi-stakeholder framework that leverages Kerala's media ecosystem to support accurate, inclusive, and timely dissemination of public health information. Build community trust in science and governance, combat misinformation and communal or caste-based scapegoating caste or religion-based scapegoating during health crisis. Promote behavioral change and early adoption of health protocols. So what is the rationale for doing this exercise? One, Kerala's media reach is exceptional with high newspaper readership, which actually is declining now. But yet, compared to other states, we still have the highest newspaper readership, digital literacy, and the social media engagement. Two, the public trust, though all over the world, the most important challenge that media faces is a growing distrust of the media. We can say in India and Kerala, the public still trust to some extent the vernacular media, especially during crisis, more than official channels alone. Three, localized, culturally sensitive storytelling can make or break pandemic protocols. Four, a pre-trained, networked media core can act faster than centralized state response teams. So, what are the key areas of intervention? One, media literacy for journalists and editors. Workshops or on pandemic science, WHO communication protocols, and ethical reporting. We should have workshops on that. Then we should create a pre-approved repository of facts, visuals, and terminology during health emergencies. We have to get used of those things were completely absent during the last pandemic, uh, uh, across the state. Three, fact-checking ecosystem. So strengthen and collaborate with fact-checking initiatives in Malayalam. Unfortunately, the fact-checking systems that we now have in India more or less are confined to the English language media. Malayalam, we don't have sufficient fact-checking systems or initiatives like in English. In Hindi also, things are improving with the complete influx of the misinformation in Hindi has actually created a new system of fact checking in Hindi. So the number four, pandemic simulation exercises with media participation. In media should be included in mock drills and public health scenario planning. Develop standard operating procedures for information flow and press access during lockdowns or medical emergencies. Number five, community media and hyperlocal outreach. Mobilize campus journalists, local YouTube creators, and FM radios. Translate guidelines into local dialects and cultural idioms for tribal, coastal, and migrant communities. And six, legal and ethical preparedness. Develop guidelines, possibly under a Kerala PHEMA. PHEMA that has been initiated by the Niti Aayog is quite comprehensive. And I think Kerala should have a state-specific EMA with new legislations and other systems. And so we should develop guidelines for responsible pandemic journalism. We should clarify emergency provisions related to misinformation without curbing free speech. So what are the expected outcomes of this? Number one, a Kerala-specific pandemic communication framework co-created by the government, media, and the civil society. We should create a pandemic communication core, a volunteer pool of trained media professionals ready for crisis deployment. We should reduce misinformation and panic in early phases of future outbreaks, because what Kerala faced in the beginning was complete ignorance about not just Kerala, across the country, but even if Kerala, the highly educated and sort of so-called literate state, faced such huge walls of ignorance, what would be the case of other states? So we're completely ignorant of what was happening. And and we have to strengthen the public trust in institutions, boosting compliances with health directives. So who are the stakeholders in this entire exercise? The Department of Health and Family Welfare, Government of Kerala, Directorate of Public Relations, Kerala Media Academy, journalists unions and editors guild, fact-checking platforms, academic institutions like CUSAT or IMK or CDIT, WHO, UNICEF, and public health foundations. And the next steps: organize a multi-stakeholder consultation in Thiruvananthapuram or Kochi, a set of pilot training modules in collaboration with select media houses and journalism schools, should create a rapid response media task force and include it in the state's health contingency planning. Unfortunately, wherever you have discussions and debates going on about this preparedness, I don't think that the authorities take media into consideration or consider media as a stakeholder in the entire exercise. But as we all know, Hawaii, Kerala could actually perform better than other states. Much had to do with the kind of media ecosystem that Kerala has. So in future at least, or in present, whenever these kinds of things are considered, I think there should be enough space for media to be taken into consideration, to be taken as a stakeholder in every consultation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think we have come to the end of the session. Briefly, Professor Kannan spoke about 5 points. Firstly, certain problems faced by Kerala, that is fiscal crisis, educated unemployed, creating an environmentally sustainable framework, avoiding lopsided development, that is 25%, there is a decline of agriculture industry and 75% comes from services. And then he talked about good governance. He talked about the fiscal crisis, the persistent revenue deficit, and there is a secular decline in tax collection from 12% of GSDP to 7%. These were the issues that he raised in this meeting. Mr. Vijayaraghavan said that the state did well in COVID handling, but he said the budgets seem very impressive when they are presented, but the implementation has been poor. And agriculture, he said there is a huge department, but it's not showing in the agriculture production field. And he talked about climate change, demographic needs, and the center-state financial relations, how it can be improved, and the fear of physical fallout, the political fallout is very much there. And he said the visa restrictions in US could lead to return migration. And he said that let this seminar be, I think that's a very intelligent and very good point, let it be the start of a conversation, better governance and less government. Professor Mridu Lipan spoke mainly about the need to provide women a greater role, whether in the budget or in the implementation of schemes, give clear data and provide skills. And you need to take into account also social skills, that's what she said. And she thought agriculture holds great potential for employment. She talked about domestic violence, and she said the data to be disaggregated gender-wise. And she also ended by saying that women had a big role to play during COVID. Professor Narayana, he said the cost of living is higher in Trivandrum, and the social development indicators are very good. But somehow we start with good institutions. We start with big changes at the start, but we are not able to take it lower down and ensure that it becomes the start of a real movement. He mentioned that only 1 out of 20 students in the biotechnology course comes from Kerala, and that also, he said that totally lacking in elementary experimental skills. So there is something seriously wrong about, we need to go beyond literary excellence is what he said. And we need to stress on, and he stress on further development. And he of course said that there is no impact of the Trump tariffs on biotechnology. Now, Professor Irudayarajan said the significant factors about Kerala are twofold. One is that a silver economy is developing, basically the aged, 20% of the population belongs to that category. And then you also have a gender dividend. Women are exceed men in the total population. So his view is that we must plan keeping these factors into account and make use of the strengths that we have in these areas. Professor Ramakrishnan, Professor Ramkumar, sorry. He said that the Kerala economy has changed over the last 20 to 30 years. Per capita income by 26-27 will be in the upper middle income category, which is good. But still, we have the problem of recurrent natural calamities. We have negative growth rate in agriculture from 2011 to 2019, even though there has been a pickup after 2020-21. And really, we need to look for areas which can generate development. Infrastructure spending may not generate this kind of development, even though it is supposed to have a multiplier effect, because we are depending a great deal on inward migration of labor and raw materials, construction materials, etc. Now, if these, everything, all the money that is generated here seems to be going out. And he felt that taxation will always remain a constraint. And he also mentioned that the point I had referred to, the Trump tantrums. Now, he said that they have estimated that planning board has estimated that $161 billion will be the loss that Kerala may sustain because of the Trump tariffs. That was 1,300 crore. And we need to diversify into other markets and move into new areas of processing in order to make up for the loss. And he thought that we have a great deal of potential in Southeast Asia. Mr. Radhakrishnan, I think, made a very important point. That is, he said that the media has to play a big role in rebuilding Kerala. Whether during COVID or later, the whole idea is that unless we make the media also part of our overall program for growth, we are going to be constrained, we are going to be held back, primarily because of bad reporting, biased reporting, and so on. I think this is a very important point. And I would suggest that the Gulati Institute may really think of this particular area. If you can talk to Mr. Radhakrishnan and try and put together a program where you bring in the media, that would be a good thing, because even yesterday we were having a meeting, we were talking about substance abuse among children. There is a great deal of fear about biased reporting by certain sections of the media, just like as there is fear about the Child Welfare Council. In case any effective action is taken against anybody, Child Welfare Council comes like a ton of bricks on them. So these are areas which we need to look at, because we are not going to be able to do anything very significant unless the media is on. So these are the main points. I thank all the speakers. I think it's been a very good session, and I congratulate Professor Joseph for organizing this. Thank you.
As we draw the seminar to a close, I request Dr. Ashwati Rachel Varghese, Assistant Professor of Gift, to deliver the vote of thanks.
Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Although I was entrusted with the task of proposing vote of thanks for the whole seminar, I think it's appropriate to propose vote of thanks for the current panel and just a one sentence vote of thanks for the entire team. So we had an incredibly excellent panel towards the as we were wrapping up the whole 2-day the whole 2-day seminar. Actually, the entire points that we have been deliberating for last 2 days has been encapsulated very well and flagged certain kinds of pressing concerns that the Kerala economy has been facing, including the idea of silver economy, which is very well in sync with the budgetary announcement of the current fiscal year, the second innings that Honorable Finance Minister has announced during the FY26 budget. Okay, now I would like to I would like to start thanking our Honorable Finance Minister and Chairman of GIFT, even though he is not physically present here. His vision has actually translated into this thought-provoking seminar. Thank you so much, sir. I would like to thank the chair of the session, Shri K.M. Chandrasekhar, who has actively participated and involved in the discussions. I would like to thank Professor K.P. Kannan, Shri G. Vijay Raghavan, Professor Mridul Epan, Professor Chandrabas Narayana, Professor S. Radharajan, Professor R. Ramkumar, Shri M.G. Radhakrishnan. Yeah. And I would like to thank our director, Professor K.J. Joseph, whose relentless effort has actually behind the success of this 2-day seminar. And I would like to thank our respected registrar, Dr. A. Saraf, who was actively involved in all the detail of this program. I would like to thank, actually my heart goes out to all the PhD scholars who were behind the success of this particular seminar. Thank you so much. And I would actually like to thank the entire GIFT community. Like I'm not mentioning any particular name, like all committee members and especially the seminar coordinators, Dr. Kiran and Dr. Geeta, for their effort and meticulous planning of this program. Thank you so much. Thank you, GIFT community.
I
Thank
think
you.
this
The meeting comes to an end.
was really good. Each one of you made outstanding one. I think, including our the way in which came to this is summarized. Wonderful, in fact. So, thank you, thank you, thank you.
I think you talk sometime, catch on to it.